Okay, well, good evening, everyone. I'm Mayor Val Vandenbroek, and I'd like to call the October 4th, 2021 regular council meeting to order and begin by acknowledging that the land on which we gather is the unceded territory of the Katzie, Kwantlen, Maskwee, and Semiahmoo First Nations. And it is our first in-person meeting back. So with me tonight, I have Councillor Rudy Stortaboom, Councillor Rosemary Wallace, Councillor Terry James, Councillor Nathan Bahal, and Councillor Paul Albrecht. For staff tonight, we have our Chief Administrative Officer, Francis Chung, Darren Light, our Director of Corporate Services, Kelly Canny, our Corporate Officer, squeezed in between there, and on the other side we have Rick Baumhoff, our Director of Engineering, Parks and Environment, and Carl Johansson, our Director of Development Services. It's so weird not looking at the screen to find everyone. Okay, so bear with us tonight. First meeting back, we have the adoption of the October 4, 2021 regular agenda. Before we consider adoption of the agenda, are there any changes or additions to the agenda? Yes.
I thought you were asking for a motion to approve.
Okay, motion that the October 4, 2021 agenda be adopted as circulated since no one had any additions. Excellent, thank you, Mr. Stortaboom. Mr. Bahal, all those in favor? We're back on track. Okay, so public hearing minutes from September 27th, 2021. Before we make the consideration of these minutes, I understand that Mr. Johansson, you had a clarification you wanted to make on them, please.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Just on the last bullet on the last page of the minutes, there's a notation there of 1,500 square feet larger. I said that in error. I looked at the wrong numbers in my notes. It's actually 7,500 square feet. Just wanted to clarify that.
Excellent, thank you for that. Thank you. Okay, so with council's agreement, I can include this as a clarification to be made when we consider the motion to adopt these minutes. So are there any other corrections to the minutes? Seeing none, I will read out the motion that the minutes of the public hearing held on September 27, 2021 be adopted with a note of clarification next to the last bullet on page 12 to indicate the figure stated at the public hearing was later determined to be 7,500 square feet rather than 1,500 square feet. Councillor Stortaboom, Councillor Wallace, all those in favor? And that carries. All right, so next upcoming meetings, we have the regular council meeting on October 18th, 2021, and that'll be back in person in council chambers at 7 p.m. And the following regular council meeting after that will be November 1st, 2021, with the time and location to be determined, as council is currently considering updates to its council procedure bylaw to permit electronic meetings. And up next, we have Councillor Rosemary Wallace with Library Happenings.
Thank you, and I hope I can do Councillor Martin proud. She does a wonderful job of this. So we can move to the next slide. So October is Canadian Library Month. All month long, libraries across Canada are raising awareness of the valuable role libraries play in Canadians' lives. More than just a place to find books, libraries promote cultural awareness, engage in the community, provide educational programs, support freedom of expression, and so much more. Fraser Valley Regional Library is promoting this special awareness month by offering a system-wide contest and an opportunity to win a tablet. To enter, you must get a library card or recommend a friend to sign up for a library card. Okay, Art Show and Tell. In celebration of Culture Days, join us for a virtual art show and tell. Come prepared to share and discuss one of your art creations, painting, pastel, sculpture, cross-stitch, art, etc. Sphero, Spark, and Robots are part of the Fraser Valley Regional Library Playground Lending Collection. Join us for the month's fun Sphero-centered event, a speed coding challenge. It is a race against the clock. Coding tasks will be given to the contestants. Check out Sphero, Spark plus Robot before the program to join in the fun. Family Forts Night. Grab a flashlight, some blankets, and pull the pillows off the couch. It's Family Forts afternoon at Halloween. Wear your Halloween costume and join us in your cozy fort, and we will enjoy reading together. State of the World Birds presentation. Join Derek Matthews, a bird conservationist and researcher, for a presentation all about birds. Learn what challenges birds face and how you can help. The presentation, along with borrowing and Fraser Valley Regional Library bird watching backpack kit from the playground, will get you all ready for bird watching. Tim Burton trivia. Halloween is just around the corner. Have some frightful fun and test your knowledge of some delightfully spooky films with our Tim Burton trivia event. Participate yourself or gather everyone in your household and scare your way through the questions together. Thank you.
Well, I think Councillor Martin would be proud of you, Councillor Wallace.
Thank you. Thank you.
Any comments or questions? I know I want to get in on the Tim Burton's night. Okay. Up next, we have Mr. Baumhofer, Director of Engineering, Parks and Environment, who has an engineering update for us.
Great, thank you very much. Update for October 2021. And this first slide is the 200th Street sewer upgrade has now started. It's between from the Nickelmeckle Bridge. There's a trunk line along the river area there, and we're connecting to that and going up to 49th Avenue to the south. And like I said, had started last week, and it's underway now as this week as well, and it will be for the next few weeks. This project is being done through a pipe bursting program, so they will be doing excavations along the way to access the trunk line, and they'll be putting a new line within it, so there won't be an open cut the whole length. So it's another project. We've done it with something similar to that on 48th Avenue, and it's meant to reduce the traffic impact over the overall project. So this is a shot of their preparation work this last week. Last week was a bit more of a disruption to traffic because they had to move up and down the site in the preparations, but this weekend going forward, it should be a little bit better. This is a shot of the 200th Street paving project, and I know I showed some pictures of this last time, but this one shows the final line marking, and it's unique because we used the beaded line marking paint, and it's a thermoplast, and it's got more of an elevation to it, so the lights on the vehicles and lights of the street lights will reflect off of it and make it clearer for drivers at night especially. And this is a picture of the 208th Street project, which consists of adding bike lanes and trail improvements, and also addition of tree planting along the alignment. So I think it will also add a beautification factor to the project, and that's well underway as well. This is a shot of one of the retaining walls that came close to the Nickelmeckle River, so that's why they had to use retaining walls in that section. And this will also provide a nice connection between the Nickelmeckle Trail, and you know how you always had to go up to the road, get onto the narrower sidewalk, and then connect back up to the Nickelmeckle Trail in the Nickelmeckle Park. So this will add a safety factor away from traffic, make it a much more open, safe feel as for people using the trail network. This is a shot of the Glover Road project. Most of the utility work has been completed, although I did see them still doing some water main today. But they are moving on to the roadworks portion. So this is a section where they had to grind out the asphalt and redo the base material right along Glover between 56th and Fraser Highway. And this is a shot of the utility works. And just some of our parks projects. We replaced this pedestrian bridge in City Park. It's the lower bridge that just above the creek level, connecting between the park and the playground area. This is a shot showing a new garden bed that was added to City Park. It's just to the west and south of the pool. And this, the sports court at Douglas Park has been resurfaced, and this is a shot of it being completed. And this is a shot of the downtown picnic benches assembled and ready to be placed in the downtown area. We had hoped that they were going to be delivered in the summer, but with COVID and a number of factors, delivery was delayed greatly. But we're happy to have them, and they will be placed out on Fraser Highway in the one-way, as well as McBurney Plaza, and ready for use and next year, summer. This is some clearing around the Seniors Center stormwater pond. We opened that area up, and it started with our LEPS group. They went in and removed a whole pile of invasive blackberries. And then we went in and cleared the underbrush and put in some new trails and just opened up the pond area for viewing. And believe it or not, we're working on Christmas decorations. We received the new pole mount decorations. And so this is staff just organizing them, getting them all ready. And for, I think, will be another great Christmas display season this coming year. And last but not least, just a reminder to residents that the Household Hazardous Waste event is coming up on Saturday, October 23rd, and Sunday, October 24th, between the hours of 9 a.m. and 3 p.m. And it's for residents only, so it's the Township of Langley as well as the City of Langley residents. And it's at the George Preston Recreation Center at 20699 42nd Avenue. So bring your hazardous waste material there. Thank you.
I'll have to get my collection put together.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Mr. Baumhoff, and your staff for all the great things you're doing and that wonderful presentation. Go ahead, Mr. Storteboom.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Baumhoff. Always great to get your presentations, hearing of all the good work that you and your team are doing in my beloved city. I can't help but say that you guys have really demonstrated tremendous effort in establishing these new infrastructure projects, but in the maintenance of our community and parks and trails and laneways, and made it that much more pleasant for us who have been isolated for so long during this pandemic. And I want to thank you and your team for that. I also wanted to know about the intersection at the edge of our city on Fraser Highway, adjacent to the ABSL. Now, I've spoken with Langley Township Manager, or Assistant Manager now, McGarvey. He said he was going to approach his superior to approach the city about making that intersection by the Anglican Church a full intersection to accommodate the ease of movement for traffic attending the ABSL. As we all know, the Arboretum and Botanical Society of Langley, the Derrick Doubleday Arboretum, has become a real touch point for a lot of people, not just because of the beautiful plantings and presentations there, but it's become sort of a focal point of the community. Most recently, we must have had 300 or 400 people come out for the Day of Truth and Reconciliation on September the 30th. And with the park being used that much more often, access and egress from that location is becoming a safety concern. So in the event that you haven't been approached, I would like to encourage you to consider approaching the township to see if the city and the township might be available to partner on making that a full intersection with a left-hand turning bay into the ABSL heading east on Fraser Highway.
Yes, we have had discussions with them, and we have given preliminary approval to them designing it. That intersection is completely within the township area, so it is something that they are taking the lead on, and we have not yet seen the plans, the details of it. But and I understand there's some environmental issues around the construction, so that might be why it's taking a little bit while. But we are definitely open to that being a full intersection, yes.
Well, thank you very much for that update. I always thought that there was a little chunk of the ABSL that was actually, or the Derrick Doubleday Arboretum that was actually in the city. I rather prided the fact that the township was paying property taxes to the city. But if you say it's entirely in the township, I think it does benefit the community, and I'm not surprised you're all over it already, so thank you very much for that update.
Sorry, Mr. Baumhoff, did you have a?
I guess maybe as a clarification, it might be, there might be a section within the city. There definitely a part of the park is in the city, yes. I'm pretty sure there's no taxes paid on it, but I think because it is large, it is a township park.
Mhm.
It is an access into their facility. That's why they're taking the lead on it, on
Excellent.
the project.
Mr. Chung,
Excellent.
did you want to comment?
Thank you very much.
Through the Madam Mayor to Councillor Slugum, yes, that part is actually belongs to the city's jurisdiction, but like Mr. Baumhoff said, because it is a township park and they require that additional access from safety reasons, so they will be responsible for paying for the cost for the intersection upgrade.
Thank you, Mr. Chung. Thank you, Mr. Baumhoff. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Wallace.
Thank you for your presentation. I have two questions, or one compliment and a question. First of all, with the Truth and Reconciliation motion that was passed, one of the action items was putting a banner up, and just the efficiency of your department being able to do that, because the motion was passed just weeks ago, and I know we asked for two, and we got one, and we'll have two next year, but it's wonderful to see that banner up, and I just wanted to thank your department with your efficiency of getting it up.
Yeah, thank you.
It was very important. And my question is the benches. What are they made with? I still think it's wonderful that they're going to be put out. I think living where we do, we have days that are nice still that we can sit out. So, and I know that just as far as COVID and safety, it's nice to have those options as well. So, just the material that they're made with.
It is plastic, but maybe I can refer to Councillor James, and actually I neglected to say it's a partnership between
Oh, wonderful.
the DLBA, and they had supplied the tables, and we're assembling them and putting them out. So I believe you might have some information on the materials.
It's your choice. You're here as a counselor.
Through the mayor to Councillor Wallace, I know that the picnic tables are made from recycled plastic. That was one of the conditions and why they were selected from Barco Industries, was because of the materials that were used. And the metal, Mr. Baumhoff, is it aluminum?
No, I think it's steel.
Steel, I think
Yeah.
so. And the other reason why they were selected is because they're really substantial. They weigh a
Wonderful.
lot, and so
Well-
yeah, so all recycled plastic though, for sure.
That is wonderful to see that initiative happening. So is my understanding, because I know we decided where they were going to go, is it where all the planters are right now? Is that where those picnic benches are going to go? And where will those planters go now?
Well, the planters were meant to be around the tables, so they're not going to be moving.
Okay.
They might have to be adjusted slightly, but the intent is that they would provide a barrier between the vehicles and the picnic benches, and just an added safety factor. so that they are planned to stay there.
Wonderful, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and to staff. Just for clarity, those benches are coming up, going out as soon as they're able.
Right.
So they'll be available within the next month or so. Would you think?
I expect it'll be within the week or two.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's exciting. And yeah, I mean, just on the flower pots, it might be old news, but they were looking really nice this summer. And I think, next year it'll almost be like a little tropical oasis downtown there. So great work to the staff. I know I probably bugged you a few times, probably other members of council bugged you a few times about greening things up. And I think it looked really good this year, especially as an interim step until we get street trees back, hopefully downtown. Other thing, I know it's old news, but still important, that you did resurface the Nicholas Park tennis courts, so that was still great
Yes.
that you were able to do that. And it really adds values for the residents, because I know there's still folks that play tennis, and they are playing tennis there now that you've resurfaced it. Christmas decorations. So we had those sort of like classic Christmas decorations, I'll call them that. So they're, with this batch, are they all retired and gone now?
I would need to check on, I know there's some that have been refurbished.
Okay.
So I would have to get back to you on the
Okay.
details of what's going where.
Well, I guess I'm not too concerned about
Okay.
where the location of each decoration is, but is the idea to sort of over time renew the
To
whole fleet?
renew, yes.
Well,
for
that's
sure.
exciting. And then just from a sort of more geeky perspective, so Glover Road, I know you said they had to do some changes with the material, the substrate underneath. Was that road one of the roads that were built with logs and whatever the heck they happened to find back in the day in certain sections, or is that more like the section? Were there anything like that, or is it actually a pretty standard road?
It's
so there's
actually
no
a pretty
surprises?
standard road,
Oh, that's
which
good.
was surprising. It was actually fairly good base.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Because
it
I
was
know
good.
that 56, I think, was a nightmare.
Yes,
Yeah.
it was.
Cool. Thank you very much, Mr. Baumhoff.
Great. My only question would be, when are the Christmas decorations going up? I would hope after Remembrance Day.
Yes, so we normally wait until after Remembrance Day, but the rest of the month of November, the month of November is really when they go up.
Thank you. Okay, any other questions or comments? Guess no.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Baumhoff. Okay, on to bylaws. Bylaw 3181, Watercourse Protection Bylaw Amendment. Final reading of a bylaw to amend the Watercourse Protection Bylaw. Motion forward is that the bylaw cited as Watercourse Protection 2021, number 3152, Amendment 1, 2021, number 3181, be read a final time. We need a mover and a seconder. Councillor Paul, Councillor Albrecht. Any discussion on this? Call the vote. All those in favor? Any opposed? That carries. All right, Ms. Kenny, you're up next with Council Procedure Bylaw 2021, number 3193, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a brief overview. Since the provincial declaration of a state of emergency on March 18th, 2020, as a result of the pandemic, the province has issued various ministerial orders to assist local governments to continue to conduct their business while complying with evolving public health orders. Since June 17th, 2020, local governments have been operating under Ministerial Order M192, which has allowed the city to conduct council committee meetings and public hearings electronically via Zoom. Order M192 expired on September 28th, 2021, and in its place, Provincial Bill 10 has come into force, which allows local governments by bylaw to hold electronic meetings, which many municipalities have found provide greater flexibility for municipalities and easier access for the public. So accordingly, changes to the city's council procedure bylaw are required in order to allow council, when deemed necessary, to conduct meetings electronically. The current procedure bylaw was adopted in 2013, so in addition to incorporating provisions of Bill 10, staff have reviewed the entire bylaw and are proposing various updates as detailed in the summary of proposed changes document that's attached to the report, which are intended to provide better clarity of certain procedures and reflect best meeting practices. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much, Ms. Kenny. Any questions regarding the bylaw? Yeah, I'll take a mover and a seconder, and then we can have discussion. Councillor Sturdivant, Councillor Albrecht, did you have a, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. And to staff, I think I've already mentioned this, but I was wondering if we could look into the possibility of providing closed captioning option for those people that have a disability. Thank you.
Okay, sorry, I wasn't sure if you had your hand up or not, so. It's just so different being live instead of seeing you all in front of me on Zoom. It's very, very different tonight, so just getting used to it. I do have several questions, Ms. Kenny. I just want to know if you can address them. On page 38, where council has voted not to sustain the ruling of the presiding member, can you please explain to me why this was included? Sorry, page 15 of the council procedure bylaw.
Okay. So that one really was just to clarify what happens in accordance with section 132 of the community charter. So it was really just more clarification. It's not adding any other new.
And that's per Robert's Rules of Order, am I correct on that?
That's per the community charter, basically, is what happens, yeah.
Great, thank you. The other question I have is what happens with the electronic means when, let's say, we're quarantined? So me as the presiding member would be quarantined and not be able to attend in person. What would happen in that situation?
Through the chair, are we talking about having some members participating on site and some?
Correct, yes.
So more of a hybrid meeting?
Yep.
So that would then possibly have to have a suspension of the rules of procedure to allow somebody else to assume the chair if the chair was not able to attend on site, because that is one of the requirements currently under the bylaw, that if it's an on-site meeting, up to 3 members can participate electronically as long as the presiding member is on site.
Okay. And I did have another question for, I have concerns about ballots being taken in secrecy in regards to people attending training or trying to further themselves professionally. Why was it chosen to go to a secret ballot? That's page 19.
Right. So currently, we don't have any provision in our bylaw to have a vote by ballot, and that is something that is in other municipalities' bylaws for these types of votes. So that was something that, as a best practice, I thought would be something that council may want to consider.
Okay, and is there any way to put a motion forward so that once the secret ballot is taken, there's a record of who was for or against? Is that?
That would go against the point of the secret ballot, which is to preserve the secrecy of each person's vote.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Okay. Any further discussion? No, all those in favor? Okay, sorry. Motion forward is that the report of the corporate officer, sorry, there's 2 here. Corporate officer dated September 23rd, 2021, entitled Council Procedure Bylaw 2021, number 3191, be received for information. So need a mover and a seconder on that. Councillor Bahal, Councillor Albrecht. Any further discussion? Call the vote. All those in favor, and that carries. On to bylaw 3193, council procedure bylaw, first, second, and third reading of a bylaw to adopt a new council procedure bylaw to update provisions in the bylaw, including providing for electronic means. Motion that the bylaw cited as the council procedure bylaw 2021, number 3193, be read a first, second, and third time. I need a mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Albrecht, Councillor Bahal. Any further discussion on that? Seeing none, call the vote. All those in favor? Any opposed? And that carries. Thank you. Bylaw 3192, permissive tax exemption bylaw, first, second, and third reading of a bylaw to exempt certain lands and improvements from municipal taxation for the year 2022. Mr. Light, would you like to provide any introductory comments on that, please?
Yes, Madam Mayor. So each year, council provides or adopts a permissive tax exemption. A number of properties have been ongoing in that permissive tax exemption. I will draw to your attention there are 4 new requests for permissive tax exemptions at the end of that explanatory note. Global School Society, oh, sorry. Yeah, that's right. Here we go. Langley Memorial Hospital Auxiliary, Langley Food Bank, Inclusion Langley Society, and Encompass Support Services are the 4 new ones that have not been included in the bylaw, and if council chose to do add any of those to the bylaw would be amended at first, second, and third reading.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
If council wished to add any of those 4 new requests, the bylaw has been drafted as a status quo, so council would have to request a change to what's the bylaw in your agenda package and include any of those 4 new
So
ones.
put forward a motion to change, amend the, okay?
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Was that, sorry, Ms. Kennedy?
Sorry, Madam Chair, just in case if anybody was contemplating amending the bylaw, there should only be 2 readings then, and then make amendments and then give third as amended, so we don't have to rescind third reading.
Okay, so let's put the motion on the floor, get a first and seconder, and we'll have discussion, okay? Motion is that the bylaw cited as the permissive tax exemption bylaw 2022, number 3192, be read a first, second, and third, first and second time. Okay. Councillor Sturdivant, Councillor Albrecht, discussion. Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. I'm sorry, Ms. Kinney, I wasn't quite sure what you said there because I'm interested in adding the Langley Food Bank to the list.
And this would be the correct time to do that after second reading and before third reading. I just want to make sure that it wasn't given 3 readings.
So I've amended it to first and second, Rudy, so you can make an motion to amend.
I'd like to make a motion to amend the permissive tax exemption bylaw for 2021 to include the Langley Food Bank. Can I
Okay,
get
I'll
a
second that
seconder?
that motion. Discussion on that. Thank you for bringing that forward, Rudy. Councillor Pahal, I see you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just, if I may, there are many great organizations within Langley City, and we don't have a framework for permissive tax exemptions and how we grant them. For me, I think it's a legacy program that we should be looking at maintaining as is and not expanding. And as I've stated publicly, and as I did last year, say for the Langley Food Bank, they applied for a grant, and I was happy to support that, and I would ask that they do the same thing there. And that ensures that we can ensure that our funding is being used for specific programs as opposed to just general property tax exemptions where it could be less ambiguous. If we open this up, I mean, I know a lot of great societies as well, and I'm sure we could expand our permissive tax exemption program by another $250,000 a year. So I just want to be mindful that there are many great organizations in Langley City. We have a robust community grant program. I encourage them to apply through that program because I don't know how I could make a choice on one of our great nonprofits over another. So thank you.
Councillor Albrecht, did you have your hand? Okay. Councillor Sturdup.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you for the support that we've had for this so far. Just in response to Councillor Pahal, I know that he supported the community grant application last year, and I appreciate that, and I'm sure the food bank does too. It's about 10% of what the permissive tax exemption would allow. It's the difference between about 22,000 and 2,200. So the fact is, this is the only food bank in Metro Vancouver that doesn't have a permissive property tax exemption. Even the satellite that was established in Aldergrove from this food bank gets a permissive tax exemption. They all get this except in Langley City, where they've been serving the people of our community for over 30 years to put food on their table. And now they're more important to the lives of our residents than ever before. These are desperate times, and this is a worthwhile organization. I would encourage my council colleagues to support this exemption, please. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Sturtevant. Any other? Go
I have a question about the food bank. Do they own the property?
No,
Okay.
that's not really the issue. We've had,
Well, how do we know that they're going to get benefit from the let's say, gift that the city is going to give through that permissive tax?
the landlord has expressly stated so, as was the case for Southgate Church when they were at the Langley
Oh,
Mall.
I don't remember that. I was on council on that one.
They
so.
were a tenant there too.
But I'm of the mind of Councillor Pahal. This is a legacy project that I would, and I supported the food bank at the grant time as well. So I'm not inclined to expand the program at this point in time. Thank you.
Go ahead.
I do understand, Councillor Pahal and Albrecht, and we have to make those fine lines sometimes. But I have to agree with Councillor Stordeboom on this one. I think we are in desperate times, and you know, we're looking at affordability of just living, and you know, people having to make decisions on putting food on the table. And this organization has been around for a very long time, and they have come to us with an ask and with a need. And yeah, so I am gonna be in favor of this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Wallace. Yeah, I'm of the same opinion of Councillor Wallace and Stordeboom in the fact that we've been through COVID now for over 18 months and people are suffering. And as far as I'm concerned, food is a basic need. And that's the kind of thing that we should be covering under tax exemptions. Families, seniors, we're seeing more and more seniors attending the food bank because they cannot make ends meet due to COVID. And as far as I'm concerned, our charter states right in it that we should be taking care of our citizens, and food and water comes first, and shelter. And I think this is super important, even if we do it for the year and see how COVID goes and do it another year. But I think compared to other things that are brought up with grants and such, this is a basic necessity and need of life to survive. And people have been suffering a really long time. And I'm in full support of giving this to our community. I think it's important.
Thank you.
Councillor James?
Thank you. I'm going to support it, but, because I'm listening to what everyone's saying, and I tend to agree. But I would like the caveat that we get proof from the landlord, the property owner, that this is in fact going to be given directly to the Langley Food Bank.
Thank you.
Can I have clarification with staff that we are allowed to ask that, please?
We will contact the applicant and make sure that we can see their lease. If it's a long-term lease, that would demonstrate that they would be getting the benefit of the tax exemption.
Great, thank you for that. Okay, so I'm gonna call the, Ms. Kenny, do you have the amendment?
So that was one of the questions I was asking. So this is actually a friendly amendment
Okay,
for that, that there be proof given from the landlord that they will use the money for the benefit of the food bank.
so I can call the vote on that?
On the amendment, yes.
On the amendment, okay, so I'll call the vote. All those in favor of the amendment of including the food bank? And opposed? Councillor Albrecht and Pahal opposed. Okay. Would you like to speak? Yeah.
I'd also like to make an amendment. I'd like us to include Encompass Support Services Society, 20616 Eastleigh Crescent, for consideration for permissive tax exemption.
Go ahead. Oh, you're seconding it? Yeah, sorry, I'm out of touch here. Okay, who would like to discuss this?
So I think it's only fair that we include Encompass Support Services Society. They've worked in partnership with other societies such as the Langley Community Service Society in Tandem that support our community. We've given the Langley Community Services Society a permissive tax exemption as long as I remember. For Encompass Support Services, they're looking at starting the Foundry. That is a really important center that supports youth in our community and families in our community. And as we know, families is the foundation of our community. So I believe it's only fair and equitable that we include Encompass. They have put serious investment into our community with a over $1 million center. Every dollar will help them to ensure that this is a success for our community, for our youth. It is so critical. And I think it's only fair because we also give the grant to Langley Community Services Society.
Councillor Stortaboom and then Councillor Wallace.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, this is wonderful. All of a sudden, we're opening it up. Oh, my goodness, how very exciting. I will support this because although Encompass is relatively quite new to our community, and the food bank has been with us for well over 30 years, I do believe in the visioning and the work that Encompass does. So I will support this. Thank you very much.
Councillor Wallace.
Thank you, Councillor, to the Mayor, to Councillor Paul. I will be supporting this because I look at it as preventative. It's a preventative of helping our youth and our families, and that's our future. So thank you.
I'm waiting for staff. Sorry. Did you, no? Albert, did you have a comment?
I guess I'm just waiting for the Langley Memorial Hospital Auxiliary and then the Inclusion Langley Society to be brought forward. We might as well do all four.
I'll second that motion. I have no problem with all four going forward. The only issue I would have with Encompass is that, sorry, but I think it's a conflict of interest you bringing up considering your husband, and I know it's for you to declare a conflict, but I worry about that. Councillor
Okay,
Pahal.
I'll declare a conflict if it's better, and if someone else wants to bring it forward, I'll step away and recuse
just
myself,
saying.
because that is,
I'm
if that's
just-
that is a fair comment, so I will
just want you
recuse
to be
myself and
okay.
I will rescind my motion. Is that okay, Ms. Kenny?
If the seconder is in agreement.
Are you okay with the rescission? And I'll
Yeah.
leave the room if someone else, whatever. Let me know.
I just want you to be. Councillor Wallace.
I move that the Encompass receives a tax exemption for the, I'm not going to go into it again. We've already heard all the wonderful reasons why, so I would like to put that forward.
Can we just include that as a friendly amendment, Ms. Kenny? Both of them, or did we want to put all four forward as Councillor Albrecht
We-
stated?
Okay, so we're back to square one, so if council wishes to do all three of them at the same time, they can, or if you're only wanting to do the one, Councillor Wallace, that's fine too.
I can, if I didn't know, I thought we had to do one by one, but if we could do the other three of the.
You know, that's probably a better thing, because someone might not be willing for
So
one
just
for the
doing the
other. I
one-
think that
one
would
at
be
a time?
better, second thought, yes.
So I'll stay with the motion that I stated.
Seconder, Councillor Stortaboom. Okay, so, any further discussion on this?
Madam Mayor,
Yes, Mr. Lang.
if I may, there's just two properties related to Encompass. I just wanted for clarification that it is both the properties. There's just two units within that one
Correct.
property, so it's both of them together.
Okay, excellent. Okay. So the motion on the floor is that all four be no, we're gonna start with, sorry, let me get. I gotta get a list of, where's that list? Okay, so we're gonna add the two Encompasses first, Encompass Support Society Service. Okay, so all those in favor of supporting Encompass?
Can I ask a question first?
Yes.
Is this just 1 year and we revisit it next year? Because we put a condition on food bank. I'm just wondering if this is something we're going to review a year from now.
I would say yes. That is my understanding.
The bylaw comes before council every year.
Yeah.
It's a one-year term.
So
on
it
the
is a one-year
bylaw.
term.
I just
Okay.
wanted to make sure that's clear.
And it's stated in the letter that's sent out to them, correct, Mr. Light?
It will be, yes.
Okay. Okay. Clarification done? Okay, we're gonna vote on this. All those in favor of adding Encompass? Okay. He's just gonna get Counselor Bahal back in. Thank you, Counselor. Appreciate it. I don't want you to get into any trouble for anything, just in case. Okay, Langley Memorial Hospital Auxiliary, why don't we start with that one? Any discussion on it? Mover and a second. Mover and a seconder. I'm gonna say Counselor Wallace and Counselor Storterboom for Langley Memorial. We add them for a year under the tax exemption. Any other further discussion on that? Yes, go
Well,
ahead.
thank you very much. I really appreciate the mayor and council considering the application of the Langley Hospital Auxiliary. We don't have a hospital in our community, so this is our way of supporting the hospital, which doesn't pay property taxes up on the hill. And that's the entire function of this group of volunteers. They are wonderful people. They do a great job, and they provide a lot of income to accommodate the needs of the Langley Memorial Hospital. And I support this resolution and invite my fellow councillors to do the same. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Counselor Storterboom. And what I will say as well is they are not making the revenue on the parking anymore, which was a huge component. And unfortunately, a lot of their volunteers, due to COVID, have not been able to volunteer. So they have not been able to make the money to support and buy the medical equipment and such that we need in our community as much. So this will go a long way in helping them for the year. Any other comments or? Okay, I'll call the vote. All those in favor of Langley Auxiliary, any opposed? Okay, that carries. Inclusion Society. I need a mover and a seconder on that, please. Counselor Wallace. Counselor Pahal. Okay, anybody wish to discuss this one? See no one? All those, did you want to?
I don't know if this would be appropriate, so you can say if it's not. In regards to going back, we're doing each one of these, and I'm interested to know if Councillor Pahal and Councillor Albrecht would have voted in favor of the food bank since we're doing it this way, because it seems like every one that we've done, we've said yes to. So I don't know if we can. I know that doesn't pertain to the motion right now, but I don't know when I can ask that question. But anyway, yeah, I'm just moving that we include Inclusion Langley as a tax permissive.
Mr. Light, please go ahead.
Just to clarify for council, we already provide Inclusion Langley Society 8 properties that are actual living units for their folks that they're helping. This exemption is for office space.
Oh,
It's
okay.
not for the actual people living in the units, just for clarification.
I didn't realize
Okay.
that. Yeah,
Okay, any further discussion on that?
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, go ahead, Councillor Storterboom.
Well, thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Mr. Light, for bringing that up. I wasn't on council that time when inclusion residences were given property tax exemptions. I find that kind of unusual. In fact, I prefer supporting their office space because that's where all the hard work gets done. I'm uncomfortable actually with permissive tax exemptions for residences. So I would suggest that we might continue on, but that there would be a review at some point, as we're talking about, and that the residences might not be given permissive tax exemptions in the future.
I'm sure we can get staff to do, Mr. Chung? Yeah, so, okay, great.
Did you want to do that this year or next year?
I think it's a little, Mr. Chung, did you want to, or Mr. Light, comment on that?
Madam Mayor, to Councilor Slaughterboom, not speaking for Mr. Light, but I think it's probably best to go through this year and then revisit that for 2023 taxation year.
I can live with that.
Sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chung. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Okay, sorry, I'm laughing for another reason, mask reason. Okay, inclusion Langley, let's take the vote then. All those in favor? Any opposed for the year? We're good, that carries. Okay, and finally, the Langley Food Bank, which we started out with. Any further discussion on that? Okay, and all those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed, and that carries.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so we need to do the third reading, correct? Or not?
I'm sorry, could I just get, so what was the vote on the, who was against the last?
There was nobody against.
Nobody was against
Nope.
it, so we hadn't voted on the Langley Food Bank?
Oh, we did. Sorry, but I thought
That's-
Nathan, oh, never mind, sorry, Nathan negated it, so
Oh, that's,
that was inclusion. I
That-
thought,
that was
because when
encompassed, that he
Mr.
wanted-
Chung said reset to nothing, I thought we were redoing all of them.
I think we voted on the food bank, but not on the overall permissive tax exemption bylaw.
That is correct.
that is correct. We would now go to a third reading as amended, but my understanding is we had voted on,
Okay,
The food
sorry,
bank.
I thought when he said reset that we,
Okay.
that, my mistake, sorry. I apologize. Okay, so, I guess that the bylaw cited as permissive tax exemption bylaw 2022-3192 as amended be read a third time. Okay, so I need a mover and a seconder. Counselor Wallace, Counselor Stordeboom. Sorry, I'm looking that way because my neck is sore. Did you want to comment? Go ahead.
Just for my clarity, what is included now? Is everything included for this year?
Yes.
And there's nothing special or anything? Okay, thank you.
And again, Mr. Light, you've probably got the numbers there for me, but what is this going to take out of our operating capital for taxes to give these additional properties the break?
So the city's portion is $75,210, and the total exemption, when you include the exemption for TransLink and school taxes, et cetera, is $133,430.
So we'll have to incorporate a 1% increase on our tax bases in order to break even the coming year. So I just wanted to make sure that that's clear to everybody. So thank you.
Go ahead, Counselor.
Thank you.
Stewart.
Is that right? It's going to cost 1%?
1% is about $315,000, so it's, yeah. it's a
So
little
a
less than that.
fraction of 1%, right?
Yeah.
Like about a third? Okay,
Yeah.
thank you very much.
Okay, call the vote. All those in favor? Any opposed? And that carries. Okay. All right, on to the next bylaw. Bylaw 3184, zoning amendment RZ 06-21 and development permit number 0821. First and second reading of a bylaw to rezone the properties located at 19959 to 19985 56 Ave, 5643 and 5647 200th Street from RS1 Single Family Residential to L1 Light Industrial to accommodate a two-building 5,561 meters squared industrial office development. Mr. Johansson, would you like to introduce the bylaw, please?
Yes, thank you, and good evening, Mayor and Council. This application proposes a new industrial development consisting of almost 60,000 square feet of new industrial and complementary office space, complete with design and public realm elements that reflect the policy direction coming out of the new official community plan, development permit guidelines, and also looking at a high-quality public realm and architecture for industrial buildings that takes advantage of this high exposure, prominent location. And they're also looking to try to retain some mature trees on 200th Street and develop a street frontage with a double row of trees as part of that. This application is also proposing a parking variance, which is supported by professional traffic engineers report and conclusions. And it's also something that's trending towards what we're considering with our new draft zoning bylaw, parking rates, which will be brought before council in the coming month or so. The applicant has incorporated the advisory design panel's recommendations into their drawings, and further minor work, should the application proceed beyond third reading, further minor work along the 200 Street frontage will be done just to ensure that there's a need for potential emergency access points onto 200 Street for fire trucks, so there would have to be a sub-base added to the frontage, and that's something that would be reflected in the final development permit drawings. Staff are satisfied with the design updates and support the application moving forward. Thank you.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, the motion is that bylaw cited as zoning bylaw 1996 to number 2100, amendment number 180, 2021, number 3184, be read a first and second time. I need a mover and a seconder. Wallace and Stortaboom, and who would like any? Go ahead, Councillor Albrecht.
Yes, if I could get a question to staff. I'm wondering about the rooftop treatment to reduce the heat island effect, as well as the widening of, widening or enhancing of the sidewalk. 200 Street and 56th Avenue is pretty narrow with a lot of obstacles in the way for clear walking, especially if someone's on a scooter or has some disability. So it'd be nice to know if those are going to be enhanced. Thank you.
Yes, through the mayor to Councillor Albrecht, just a couple of features for the rooftop, including planters for the rooftop patio, and that's something that the applicant can elaborate on in terms of the roofing material. Should this proceed to public hearing, I know they have some thoughts on that. I think solar ready was one of the items they were also looking at for future installation. And in terms of the public realm, the frontage along 200 Street, I actually have a Google Street View image in front of me here, and there's hydro infrastructure and that sort of thing. Right now, the sidewalk is actually directly adjacent to the travel lane, and our new street standards that new developments have to put in, that's where the tree strip and the planting strip is, and the sidewalk's actually put inbound or inboard of that, separated towards the building. So that'll help to minimize those obstacles, and that's something that can be clarified when it comes forward.
Great, thank you.
Well, thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Mr. Johansson, for your report. I just want to say that this application was brought to the advisory design panel just last month, and there was some good discussion around this application. It was unique because we've been dealing with a lot of multi-family residential applications of late, including townhouses and condominium buildings. This is unique because it's a commercial industrial, and the fact that there were different elements to consider was kind of refreshing, actually. And there were a lot of questions from the developer, and then afterwards it was discussed among the group at large, and they brought forward their recommendations with their support for the application. And my understanding is that these recommendations have been brought to the attention of the developer, and Mr. Johansson and the developer have been working together to make this very workable, attractive, commercial industrial location on the northwest corner of 256. So I'd like to encourage my council colleagues to follow suit and support the application. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Sturtman. Councillor Wallace.
Thank you to the mayor, Mr. Johansson. I thoroughly enjoyed reading this application, and like Councillor Stortaboom said, something different. In the commercial industrial area, just in that area, just the upgrades to that area, the public realm, and I believe a contribution of a public art piece as well. So yeah, I just want to commend the advisory design panel, and just their thorough review in these applications, and the feedback they get, I think are the people that sit on the advisory design panel, their credibility and qualifications for making decisions is so well done. So, thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Papa.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I know this is just second reading, but one of the things that I wanted to highlight is the proponent of this project is keeping 2 significant trees on the site. And this is one of the first ones I've seen where they've done that. I just wanted to call that out because I think it's important. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Okay, any other comments or questions? Is there a reason why there is no residential added to that as well, or can I ask that? It seems like everything else is there but residential, so.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. The northwest corner of 200th and 56 is designated industrial in our current OCP and our new OCP, which doesn't permit residential, but it's part of that, what we call the production avenue sort of industrial heart. And it's that key intersection there. And it's also something that's identified in the regional growth strategy as industrial as well. So this application actually fits right into that.
Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to it. I would just like to see bigger and more on that corner. And I know Surrey has looked at doing industrial with residential as well up in Campbell Valley Heights. So I'm interested to see if we're going to go towards that notion in the city as well. I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, yes, Madam Mayor, I think there will be opportunities for that. That's something we'll probably be looking at as part of the Innovation Boulevard, for example.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank
Okay.
you. Okay, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? Any opposed? And that carries. Okay, moving on. 5370 and 5380 200 Street, 5371 and 5381 200 A Street, 20010 and 20020 Michaud Crescent, and 20031 53B Avenue. Mr. Johansson, you are up again for this bylaw.
Yes, thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. This proposed 6-story, 113-unit apartment building requires an official community plan or OCP amendment along with the rezoning and development permit, as the proposed density in terms of units is higher than the current OCP. This being said, the proposed new land use in the bylaw before you is low-rise residential, and that's consistent with what's in the new OCP, and that envisions apartments with a maximum density of 2.1 floor area ratio, or FAR, and a maximum height of 6 stories.
Great, thank you very much. So, bylaw 3185, official community plan amendment number 18, OCP 05-21, first and second reading of a bylaw to amend City of Langley official community plan bylaw in order to incorporate provisions for higher density, low-rise residential uses at the properties previously stated. Motion forward is that the bylaw cited as the City of Langley official community plan bylaw 2005, number 2600, amendment number 18, 2021, number 3185, be read a first and second time. I need a mover and a seconder. Councillor Storteboom, Councillor Albrecht. Any discussion on that? Go ahead. Councillor Storteboom and then Councillor Albrecht.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Johansson, for introducing the application. This too went to the advisory design panel, who looked at it very closely. It is in keeping with what this particular developer has been doing in that immediate area. The city's had tremendous track record of success with this particular developer for quite a long time already, and these units are intended for residential rental. They're not for resale, as are some of the other buildings that are under construction and recently completed by this developer in that immediate area. It's, I think, a nice-looking building. I mean, beauty is to the eye of the beholder, but it's a sort of a keystone, cornerstone lot on 200th at Michaud going forward, and I think it's going to be really, really good-looking and a good amendment, a good addition. That's what I'm trying to say to our community. So I would like to encourage all to support this application as well. Thank you very much, Madam Mayor.
Great, thank you, Councillor Albrecht. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you, and it does look like a really, really nice development. My question is, this is a pretty high-profile corner, and we do have a public realm and walkability concept along Michaud Crescent in that corridor. and in fact celebrating the old urban railway. So I'm just making sure that that is being respected and incorporated into the design, and ensure that that corner it looks really nice, appealing, is functional. We're not staring at some stark, barren pedestal wall or anything of that nature, and I didn't see that on any of the renderings. But that, as well as my usual question about rooftop treatment in order to reduce the heat island effect. So I'll just keep saying that until we get it every time without question. So thank you.
That's okay, it's good to hear. Staff is writing feverishly. Right? Okay, any other comments? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? Any opposed? That carries. Okay, on to OCP Amendment Application Bylaw 3185, Public Consultation and Adoption Requirements. Mr. Johansson, you were up again, please.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll be very brief. Due to this being an OCP amendment application, staff are recommending the application go to 4 external agencies consistent with the city's practice for these applications, including Kwantlen First Nation, Metro Vancouver, School District 35, and TransLink. Thank you.
Okay, I'll read the motion and then I'll get, okay. Direct staff to send copies of official community plan amendment bylaw number 3185 at 5370 and 5380 200 Street, 5371 and 5381 200 A Street, and 20010 and 20020 Michaud Crescent, and 20031 53B Avenue to the following organizations and authorities for consultation prior to holding a public hearing on October 18th, 2021, in consideration other requirements set out in Section 475 of the Local Government Act. Kwantlen First Nation, Metro Vancouver, School District number 35, TransLink. And number 2, consider official community plan amendment bylaw number 3185 in conjunction with the 2021 to 2025 financial plan bylaw number 3151 and the regional liquid and solid waste management plans in accordance with Section 4773 of the Local Government Act. I have Councillor Albrecht, Councillor Storteboom, and discussion. Who would like to speak first? Anybody? I do have a question for staff. In regards, since we do live, work, and play on all 4 territories of the Katzie, Kwantlen, Semiahmoo, and Musqueam First Nations, is there any reason why Kwantlen is the only one being consulted with? Why are we not consulting with the 3 other nations?
Through to the mayor, I think traditionally we have been referring all of our applications to Kwantlen because, they sit within this territory of Langley's, and the other First Nations, they're somewhat further away from the immediate area of Langley City, and that's part of the reason why we haven't in the past referred to them, and that's something that we need to review as staff to make a recommendations to council whether we would refer our applications to the other First Nation in the future.
Yes, and just adding to the Chief Administrative Officer's comments, is the typical approach that we've been taking with these applications in the past year or so. Of course, we'll take council's direction if there is a desire to do more than that.
So could I make a friendly amendment for it to include all 4 nations? Would that be considered a friendly amendment or not? Ms. Kenny? Sorry.
That would be up to council if they would accept it as a friendly amendment.
A friendly amendment? Okay. Councillor Wallace? Yes? Okay. Okay. A friendly amendment, not only Kwantlen, but correspond with all 4 nations that we deal with. Katzie, Kwantlen, Semiahmoo, and Musqueam First Nations. So I
Thank-
can peripherally see you. I apologize. My back is out.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I obviously totally support this, but just a question to staff. When we do our consultations, we do submit this to all the partners, and it is optional if they reply to or not, and we usually give them a time window, correct?
Yes, through to the mayor, to council, I just want to advise council that the intent here with, given that our OCP, or new OCP, has been given 3 readings as approval in principle, we've actually tightened up the referral timeline to around 2 weeks, which is our typical referral for public hearing. So just eyes wide open if there are additional First Nations added to the referral, that we are looking to schedule a public hearing within 2 weeks.
And I think that would be fine. I think it's just a matter of that's who is included in our territories, and it's respectful to send the information to them as well if we're going to be doing business with them under their territories. So, okay, so friendly amendment to include all 4 territories, and staff will investigate going forward how we will be dealing with this. Is that correct?
Yes, through the mayor, that's something that we can look at and report back on.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, I'll call the vote with friendly amendment. All those in favor, and that carries. Wonderful. On to bylaw 3186, zoning amendment number 181, RZ 0721, and development permit number DP 0921. First and second reading of a bylaw to rezone the properties located at 5370 and 5380 200 Street, 5371 and 5381 200 A Street, 20010 and 20020 Michaud Crescent, and 20031 53B Avenue from RS1 Single Family Residential to CD 78 Comprehensive Development to accommodate a 6-story, 113 apartment development. Mr. Johansson.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. So I'll focus on the, for this rezoning application, the comments from the advisory design panel. The applicant has incorporated the majority of the panel's building and site design recommendations, as shown in the drawings attached to the agenda. And noting that regarding the public realm on Michaud and 200 Street, again, the standard of having street trees along the edges would be looked at there. I'm not sure if it would be a cash in lieu and a future build out on 200 Street. And of course, the Michaud Crescent would be part of future capital project that the applicant would be contributing to. But there may be some opportunities for additional tree plantings on the Michaud Crescent corner. I can't guarantee anything, but that's something that we'll be looking to see if there's opportunities there. Just wanted to note with the dog run area, there was some discussion at the panel about the use of turf, and the panel recommended looking at something else, and we worked with the applicant on that, but there was a lot of concern about maintenance and odor and that sort of thing because it is on a slab. So they opted to go with synthetic turf. Of course, that's something the applicant can elaborate on if it's advanced to public hearing. The application also proposes residential parking rate that's consistent with the draft shoulder rates that we're looking at for the new zoning bylaw. And for visitor parking, they are looking for a variance from 0.2 spaces per unit to 0.17, which is still higher than the 0.15, which staff are looking at and what has been brought forward with other applications in this area. These approaches are supportable by staff. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. All right, the motion is that the bylaw cited as the zoning bylaw 1996, number 2100, amendment number 181, 2021, number 3186, be read a first and second time. I need a mover and a seconder. Councillor Pahal, Councillor Stortaboom. Discussion, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I did want to highlight the synthetic turf, which some members of the advisory design panel called plastic grass. Elicited quite a robust conversation and a conversation about microplastics getting into our water stream. So I know the advisory design panel was very unhappy with synthetic turf, or as they referred to it, plastic grass. So for staff, if that was something how would staff, how would council address it and say it comes in public hearing, and the proponent was still insistent? Would that be a third reading thing or a development permit thing?
Yes, to the mayor, to Councillor Bahal. Yeah, typically we bring forward rezoning applications with a development permit, so not only does council and the public know about the density and the lot coverage and height and all that, but also what the application's gonna look like. Now, we do have to separate the zoning, of course, that's what the public hearing is about, and if council chooses to give it third reading, then that's approval in principle for the zoning, and then there's a series of, servicing agreement and, lot consolidation, dedications, all that stuff have to be completed before it comes back for adoption, and it's at that point that the development permit comes back, and sometimes there's opportunities for adjustments to be made to the landscape plan, for example, and if that's something that's brought up and discussed at the public hearing, that's something that could be acted upon at third reading, because it's not new information, it's, could be seen as clarifications, and council may choose to give further direction on, aspects of the landscape plan, for example.
If so, if I may follow up, because again, this is about rezoning, so we can give first, second, and third reading, and really it's a development permit matter, so we can still rezone the property, and if the proponents, for some reason, still insistent on synthetic turf, or maybe I'm the only one on council who finds that concerning, it would go through, but if other members of council, the majority did, we could direct them at the development permit stage to consider alternatives.
Yes, to the mayor, to Councillor Bahal, yes, that can be done. My advice would be to talk about that third reading and give that direction to the applicant early. And it is, sometimes there are tweaks that are made to landscape plans or development permit drawings before they come back for final approval, and staff highlight those changes. For example, there was an item that came forward a few months ago about flood construction level, where they had changed the facade of the building to do that. So that would be an example of that.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Yep, Councillor Albert, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. And thank you, Councillor Bahal, for bringing that up. I think we should be sending a strong message today, after tonight's meeting, that we're not in favor of plastic grass. At least I would think a majority would be the same. So they might as well get and dealing with it as soon as possible to eliminate that. And just out of curiosity, for trees, we have Linwood Park right, across the street from it. They could offer to do some tree planting in the park if they're lacking a little bit of room. Just put that out there.
Yeah, I think it's important to send a strong message that synthetic grass is not the way we want to go, and I'm happy that there are environmental specialists and people concerned about the environment on your advisory design panel, so I think it would be good to know sooner than later that we as a council, I mean, we haven't all discussed it, but I think for the most of us that it's not something that we want to see in our developments.
I have a question. Is it biodegradable plastic? Like, is it recycled plastic? Is there different kinds of turf? That was
Yes.
my understanding.
Yes, through to the mayor, I'm sure that's something we can put to the applicant to describe that at the public hearing, should council move it forward. And they can talk about why they chose that material for, say, the dog run and for other parts. And I think it's good for council to put it on the table prior to the public hearing, and that's something that they can talk to. I don't have the expertise on turf materials other than
Neither do I, and
Yeah.
quite honestly, when I was reading it, I was like, oh, well, it's for dogs, I get it, they want to be able to hose it down. Being a dog owner, I totally understand that, but when you bring the environmental aspect into it, it's like, is it better or not, right? So, because I know there are different variations of the grass, of turf grass, so.
Yeah, they looked at different ground cover, loose
Yeah.
materials, that sort of thing. They're worried about it degrading. The dog droppings can be a little harsh on vegetation. A little bit worried about odor, not only for the residents, but the ones living beside it. So
Yeah.
for the dog run, they were pretty pretty convinced that turf was the way to go, but I'm sure they can present that to council at the public hearing.
Well, there's grass
So-
that grows in the shade now, so, and I used it this year and it worked, so that's all I'm gonna say to that. Okay, call the vote. All those in favor? Any opposed? That carries. All right, bylaw notice enforcement bylaw. There's a staff report in the agenda as backup to this bylaw. The motion is that the report of the manager of community safety dated September 22nd, 2021 regarding the bylaw notice enforcement bylaw be received for information. Councillor Albrecht, Councillor Bahal, any discussion? Seeing none, call the vote. All those in favor, and that carries. Bylaw 3139, bylaw notice enforcement bylaw, first, second, and third reading of a bylaw to govern enforcement of bylaw notices within the city of Langley. Motion is that the bylaw cited as the bylaw notice enforcement bylaw 2021, number 3139, be read a first, second, and third time. I need a mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Albrecht, Councillor Stortaboom, any discussion? Call the vote. All those in favor? Any opposed? That carries. Bylaw 3158, Highway and Traffic Regulation Bylaw Amendment, first, second, and third reading of a bylaw to amend the Highway and Traffic Regulation Bylaw as required to comply with the proposed bylaw notice enforcement bylaw. Motion is that the bylaw cited as the Highway and Traffic Regulation Bylaw 2013, number 2871, amendment number 5, 2021, number 3158 be read a first, second, and third time. Need a mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Albrecht, seconder. Councillor James, any discussion? Call the vote. All those in favor, any opposed? That carries. Bylaw 3171, fees and charges bylaw amendment. First, second, and third reading of a bylaw to amend the fees and charges bylaw as required to comply with the proposed bylaw notice enforcement bylaw. The motion is that the bylaw cited as the fees and charges bylaw 2010, bylaw number 2837, amendment number 29, 2021, number 3171 be read a first, second, and third time. I need a mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Wallace, Councillor Stortaboom, all those in favor? Any opposed? That carries. Okay, 5324, 5326, 5334, and 5336, 198th Street, bylaw 3179, official community plan bylaw amendment number 17, OCP 02-21, third reading of a bylaw to amend the City of Langley official community plan bylaw in order to designate the properties located at 5324, 5326, 5334, and 5336 198th Street low-rise residential with additional policy in Appendix A, Nickelmaco River District Neighborhood Plan that limits the properties to ground-orientated residential. That the bylaw cited as the City of Langley Official Community Plan, Bylaw 2005, number 2600, Amendment number 17, 2021, number 3179 be read a third time. I need a mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Bahal, Councillor Stortaboom, discussion. Go ahead, Councillor Bahal.
Thank you. And I don't mean to say anything out of disrespect, but I know we generally put our third reading about the zoning and OCP into the same discussion. And I'm wondering for this one if we can stick to the official community plan part for the official community plan part and maybe the rezoning to the rezoning, because I know sometimes it gets mixed up, and it would help me just for clarity and discussion, if that's okay. And then I'll just continue that.
Sure.
For me, I support the amendment to the official community plan bylaw because it is consistent with the Nickelmaco River District Plan, which we as a council gave third reading to and is sitting with Metro Vancouver. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Okay. Any further discussion? Call the vote. All those in favor? Any opposed? That passes. Bylaw 3180, zoning amendment RZ0221 and development permit number 0321, third reading of a bylaw to rezone properties located at 5324, 5326, 5334, and 5336 198th Street from RS1 single-family residential zone to CD77 comprehensive development zone to accommodate a 13-unit townhouse development. that the bylaw cited as the zoning bylaw 1996, number 2100, amendment number 179, 2021, number 3180, be read a third time. Any discussion? I need a mover and a seconder. Councillor Stortaboom, Councillor Pahal, any further discussion? Go ahead, Councillor Albrecht.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor, and just want to say generally, I'm in favor of development. This one here, I'm really struggling with, have struggled since, well, before the public hearing, and even more so since that time. So I do want to acknowledge the efforts made by the developer to try to alleviate the concerns of the neighborhood. And I really appreciate the feedback from the residents in the area. And I think it's important that we listen to all that. I know I have struggled and I have issues with tandem parking, and I don't think it works, not to this order or magnitude on a site like this. Like, it's 100% tandem parking. So I'm really having a struggle with that, and I know I'd be parking on the street. At this point in time, I'm not supportive of this development. I think the developer has missed an opportunity to put a product that matches and complements the neighborhood much better than what they have. So I'm not going to be supportive of this, and then I'd like to put a motion forward after the vote on this particular third reading. Okay.
Okay, any other further discussion? Councillor Stortaboom.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor, and yeah, I'm not a big fan of tandem parking either, but that's what the city is allowed, and other cities, and we have regulations when it comes to development applications, and this applicant has followed those rules that we set out. I think it's really important that when we establish rules and invite developers to come to our community and make application in keeping with those rules, that we're not fickle about it. As long as those rules are met, I think we have an obligation to move forward in partnership. Otherwise, we're sending the wrong message to the development community at a time when we need greater density. We need more housing. This is a little tight for this site. I agree. The neighbors didn't like it, especially the shadowing. They threw everything at us the other night. Some of it was more relevant than others. The fact is, it's across from a beautiful park and within steps from our beautiful floodplain. It's a nice location, and it's in keeping with what we have planned for the immediate area. And I can't say that I can turn away from the developer who's done his work, hired his people, did his homework, bought the land, cleared the houses, and suddenly say, yeah, I've changed my mind. So I'll be supporting the application, and I recommend the rest of my council colleagues do the same. Thank you.
Yep, Councillor Pahal, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I guess I would say that this has been a really interesting application, and certainly on my term on council, this has been one that's solicited the most amount of public feedback. It's also interesting as well because a good friend of mine actually is adjacent to this property. So I've really had to think of this as looking after the residents of a city of around 30,000 people. Because for me, the easy decision would be to vote against this because that would be the popular decision and popular decision for my friend as well. I'm also moving to this neighborhood. So I'm moving to one of the new townhouses on 55A, and I've walked around the area, and for me, we're in a housing crisis, a housing affordability crisis. For me, I'm moving into a tandem parking unit. I purchased it for $725,000.
Wow.
If I wanted to get the double garage, which we're talking about here, I think it was going for $890. So I think we really, really need to remember that we're not like, it's not an ethereal thing. It's not like you magically lower the price. If you do a double wide, you're removing a unit and you're raising the cost. And again, we're in a housing crisis. I make a pretty good income. I can barely afford to live in a townhouse in this community. So that's where I look at, we need to be building, I mean, I don't know if $720,000 or $25,000 is affordable, but it's certainly better. And so that's the top of my mind is affordable housing and affordable housing for families. When I look at tandem parking, I think we all know that you're gonna have one car in the garage. I lived in a tandem parking place on Duncan Way. I think that was a 47-unit complex, and it was tandem, except for like the two sides were double and then tandem. So it's pretty consistent with projects we've done in the city in the past as well. So I don't think we're adding anything different than what we've approved in the past for tandem parking. I mean, I think we should be honest about tandem parking and not call it 2 spaces. We should call it 1, and just be honest about it. But I guess my question to staff first on this is, I do hear the concerns from the residents about parking. It is serious, and it could impact people's quality of life. So to staff, how many cars would you predict in the worst case scenario would end up on the street? And have you considered the impact in the neighborhood and how many cars are parked on the street today on 53rd? I don't know if that's Mr. Johansson or Mr. Bonhoff.
I mean, we've done a review of the area, and there's, of that entire area, the parking is quite available along 53rd Avenue. In front of the park, there's lots of space. On the opposite side, on the south side, there's lots of stalls. Yes, there will likely be additional cars parked on the street, but in the area, there's lots of parking available.
That's good to hear. One of the concerns too that I think was valid is, I mean, it is public parking, but I think you get used to sort of parking in front of your house. So let's say this causes something that we didn't foresee. Would staff be, what would be the process that council could take to ensure that there's some sort of, interim parking strategy? Because it's my understanding that we are looking at a parking management plan for the city, but if something happens in the next couple of years, would the city look at parking? I don't want to be prescriptive, but would that be something where staff could look at measures just for a neighborhood? And again, I'm not saying this is what we should do. This is just an example. I know in like Burnaby, especially near SkyTrain, they might say this is parking for residents of the 9800 block or something like that. Would staff consider if there was a challenge like that to investigate a solution for those residents?
Yeah, I think we would look at that as any other issue that would arise in the city.
Okay.
And based on a complaint, we would investigate and determine if there was an issue that needed to be resolved. And if it was, we would introduce some kind of a plan to address the issue. And as you mentioned, we do intend to complete a parking study in the city in the next year or two. So that is, depending on, it's actually projected to be in the next budget. That's of course up to council to approve. So that will be reviewed. Most of it is intended more for the urban center, but it will cover the whole city, and with some comments if there are perceived issues that need to be addressed.
So if a group of residents did have a concern, what would their course of action be? Would it be to contact engineering@langleycity.ca as a first step?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. I have a bunch of questions for staff, if that's okay, Madam Mayor. So the second concern that I heard from residents was safety at the 198th Street and 53rd intersection. Just to confirm two things. One, the exit for the complex, does that meet our standards? Does it ensure that there's sight lines to the crosswalk? I think there was some discussion on maybe extending the curb or something. I don't know if you could comment on that, because I know that is a busy intersection. I jog across it every Friday morning. So I want to make sure that it's safe for me and for everybody else that walks across that street.
Right. And that was the intent of the bump outs. It was to reduce the width of the road itself for pedestrians to cross. But yes, there is an intention to, not intention, plan to extend the curb to the driveway entrance. So that'll reduce cars from parking there and increase the visibility for people that are either turning or walking in the area. And the long term as well is to remove that driveway access from 53rd.
Oh, okay.
You know, once the development to the north extends. So that would become an emergency access only. So that would be a next step.
Yes, through the mayor to Councillor Bahal, and further to the Director of Engineering's comments. Yes, the idea there is to, given the configuration of the intersection, ensuring that where the buildings are placed, I know we heard that a few times in the public hearing, that they are set back far enough to ensure clear sight lines well up 198th Street and also well eastbound down 53rd. So that was a key consideration. There's also a right-of-way that runs through the corner there that forces the buildings back as well. And that's something that will also have to be considered when we're looking at street trees. We want to put street trees along the frontage. I think pulling out that curb bump out could provide an opportunity for street trees where it's safe. But that's a key consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. And then just a comment, is the city still planning on doing a fully blinking mid-block crosswalk again at Bryden Park? Because again, being cognizant that we are introducing, granted only 12 more vehicles, but I know that area is growing. Are we still putting that project through?
Yes, we are. It's just had a few hurdles that we need to overcome, but the plan is to have that rapid flashing beacon crosswalk signal at the crossing at the hydro walkway.
Okay.
Yep.
That's good. And I have one more question. I might have others that come to mind later. But another thing just for confirmation, and again, I seriously looked at this. I looked at other townhouses that are adjacent to single-family houses in the city. There's some good examples on 201A that have existed since I've lived here in the city, which is like 2006 probably. But I just wanted to clarify, because I think I might have misheard you, Mr. Johansson. Was the density of the one at 201A and 53rd higher than this project? I wasn't clear on that.
Yes, through the mayor to Councillor Bahal. Yes, I calculated the density on the fly at the public hearing, and I can confirm that the 5255 201A Street project is a higher density than the one that's proposed, the one that's the subject of the bylaw tonight. It's not a lot more, but it works out to about a unit per acre more.
Thank you. And again, I'll just wrap up sort of my thoughts, and I am inclined to support this project. And again, the reason is we're in a housing affordability crisis. We've been talking about building the missing middle. I don't think the missing middle is nearing $1 million townhouses. The city's worked with the developer to move the project over to reduce the shading on the townhouse development. We're improving the intersection safety. We're putting in the crosswalk at Bryden. We've done a study to make sure that parking will be accommodated on the street. And if not, there's a commitment to work with the residents on a solution if it becomes a problem. And we're also working on a long-term parking strategy. And finally, we've had townhouses integrated with single-family homes in this community for more than 20 years. And I know from the 201A neighborhood, just as an aside, the top complaint I've received there is actually the crosswalk and wanting another crosswalk. I've never had anyone complain about the townhouses. So it's a tough decision for me. I think the easy decision would be to say no because it would help my friend, but I have to think of the 30,000 people and the extra 10,000 plus people that are going to move to this community over the next few years. So that's my thoughts right now.
Well thought out. Thank you for that. Go ahead, Councillor James.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm going to be supporting this development as well, pretty much based on what Councillor Pahal just said. But I do have a couple of questions about trees, because I heard loud and clear that there was concern about that. So I don't know if this is directed to Mr. Johansson or Mr. Baumhoff, but my understanding there's 5 trees that have been removed for the development, but there's actually 9 being planted for a net increase of 4 trees on the development itself. Is that
Yes, through the mayor to Councillor James. Just looking at the landscape plan here, there's 9 trees that are proposed, for which are hornbeams, 4 magnolias along 53, and 1 paper bark maple. And I also note that there's 8 Norway spruces, I believe. Yes, Norway spruces that are also being planted. They're smaller trees, they're more shade tolerant, but those are also included.
excellent? Thank you. So I also heard that street trees are pretty significant to some of the residents that had opinions at the public hearing. So having lost all the street trees in the downtown core a few years ago, there's nothing more awful than a gray landscape. So is there a solid plan for significant street trees in this project as well?
Yes, through the mayor to Councillor James. Again, with every development project that comes forward, there's frontage requirements that have to be put in by the developer, either at the time of the development or there's a cash in lieu. In this case, I imagine it's going to be put in at the time of the development. And keeping in mind to keep those sight lines clear at 198 and 53, all attempts will be made to try to get 2, 3, perhaps 4 street trees in there. I believe they're about 9 meters apart is the typical spacing. And interestingly enough, tonight we have the design criteria manual in front of council that shows our typical street sections that show where the street trees go, inbound of the curb line and between the sidewalks. So right now there are no street trees surrounding this development site. We hope to put some in front of it if
Excellent.
it gets approved.
Thank you. And just one quick follow-up question. I also heard conversation about wanting bigger trees. So for example, the caliper of the trees that are being proposed for the street trees, why can't they be bigger? And I wondered if we had a reasonable explanation for why we can't just plant these humongous trees. Because they want instant trees, is what I'm hearing.
Miracle Grow.
I can answer that one.
Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it is possible to order larger caliper trees, but they do take more time. And generally, it would take an extra year. You'd have to pre-order them so that they have more time to grow. And also, the trees will take greater effort when you do transplant them to make sure they survive. It's just in terms of watering and
So
just
the
managing
larger
them.
the tree, the more TLC it needs, like smaller ones would have a better chance of survival?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
it's because of reduced root ball. You know, they do obviously need a water bag and to be watered regularly to survive as well. But generally, they'll survive better if they're smaller caliper.
Great, thank you. That was all my questions.
Great,
Thank you.
thanks. Go ahead, Councillor Wallace, and then Councillor Sturtevant.
Thank you, and thank you for the explanation about the trees, and because bigger trees have bigger root systems, and you'll just be you'll have to deal with replacing sidewalks and so on and so on. I am happy that there will be more greening of the space. Yes, this is a hard decision to make, but when it comes to affordability of families not being able to afford a single dwelling anymore, their choice is to go to a townhouse. So I'll be in favor of this. It is a hard one though, but I do really want to thank the residents for their feedback, because I think through having that public hearing and hearing their feedback, as we move into new developments, we'll take some of that information into consideration. And I think we have. I think we really listened to them, and we've made some adjustments. I know the tandem parking, there was a mention about only being able to store one bicycle. So I'm thinking, normally there's just one car that parks in tandem parking, and I'm sure that there'd be more room for bicycles. I know across the way in Bryden Lagoon, they're parking, there's always lots of room in parking for visitors. It's a beautiful dog park. I was a bit, I don't know if I liked how they were explaining that little piece of grass that they had, and that would be used for dogs. Just like I'd hope that the residents would see that there's a beautiful dog park, a new dog park across the way. And I just see this as enhancing the area and bringing families in and, yeah, tackling that affordability, even though I still think $740,000 is a lot of money. I still think we have to still tackle the affordability of having a place to live is paramount in the city, but I'm going to vote in favor of this. Thank you.
Councillor Stortum.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I guess some of my comments would be along the lines of what Councillor Wallace was sharing, and that I wanted to thank all of the participants in exercising their democratic privilege and making themselves known. I don't think we've had a development application permit with this much scrutiny in my recent memory. There's been a lot of thought that's gone into this, and there were a lot of questions that were addressed. We had the neighbors come to the advisory design panel electronically. We had the public hearing. We engaged in conversations and emails. And I got to say, staff, Mr. Johansson, you and the team, you've done a really great job of trying to answer as many of those questions as possible. Maybe the answers aren't exactly what we would want, but we're doing our best here, and changes were made, including shifting the entire project to try to accommodate that shadowing. But for the most part, I want to thank everybody for their exercising their democratic privilege, for getting involved in the process, making themselves known, and in the end, that's a win for me. So thank you very much, everyone who was involved in this, and moving forward, I think it's going to be all right. Thank you very much.
Councillor Bahal and then Councillor Albrecht.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And just to follow up, I mean, this was a good exercise in community engagement, and I am happy that the residents came forward because they care about their neighborhood. And there was meaningful changes, like Councillor Storterboom said, obviously shifting the site over. We didn't actually talk, they changed the roof design as well. That was something that came up. And again, the changes with the safety at 198th Street and 53rd. So these are very meaningful changes, and even the discussion about trees today is something that's a result of their input and talking about the need for that. Another thing I just popped in my mind speaking about street trees is I used to live on Duncan Way when it was new, and over the summer and COVID, I've been doing a lot of walking and running in the city, and it's just so amazing when those trees just, 15 years later, it just creates such a cool, literally cool, and cool figuratively environment, and it's just so beautiful, and I think it's going to really help. Like, it's a little bit bare on 53rd and 198th, and I think it's going to create a real great green street. And maybe on the other side, I don't know if we can complement it somehow on the other side so we can get a nice little tree corridor. I know that's a city park, and we like trees in parks, so maybe that's something for staff to consider as well if they're redoing that intersection. So, thank you.
Councillor Albrecht, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to follow up on some comments that have been made and maybe clarify where I'm coming from a little bit better. So it's not easy to vote against this. The decision is really hard. I'm really supportive of development, and I know and appreciate the housing needs that our community and the region have and facing us, right? But it's like the attainability more than affordability is something that is top of my mind, and I guess the finding that balance and trying to find that attainable housing is really the question. So yes, the developer has met the requirements, and he's met all the minimum requirements, And sometimes I have to ask myself, why do we have to settle for just the minimum, meeting minimum requirements? Why not provide something that's gonna be, something to be proud of, something that's gonna have a unique feel, something a little bit different. This particular area and location, it's a high-profile corner. It's probably within the extreme walkability limits of public transit. So the tandem parking to me, is a real issue. And it's something that I know it makes maybe affordability better, but at the same time, 100% tandem parking on a site like that, to me, just doesn't make sense. I don't like tandem parking. I wouldn't own something that had tandem parking. At the same time, that's an affordable piece for a lot of people in our community and our region. So I understand that, I get that. But I don't believe this is a fair balance in terms of what the development provides versus what the community should get. So that's why I'm voting against it. I'll bring something forward after the vote.
Okay. Any other comments or discussion? I have a couple of questions myself. Great conversation, great questions from everybody here on council. It was great engagement with the public. It really was. And I wish we could see more of that from residents, because I think it's really, really important, because we can't make the decisions ourselves. We need to know what's going on out there. And here's a community that came to us and said, this isn't working for us. And we worked with them, and we worked with staff, and we worked with the developer. And so the only question I kind of have left is shadowing. So where do we stand with that? I know there was a lot of back and forth in regards to that. I know the site was moved, but is it really better than what it was before? Because that's really that transition. And I get what you're saying, Councillor Albrecht. I'm having a hard time with this as well. I agree, it's a great project. I'm just not sure if it's right for that corner. I honestly, I'm still, and what it comes back to me, you know, staff has answered the questions about the parking and the trees and all of that. But what it comes back down to me for is that shadowing thing. And are we doing the right dimensions for these neighborhoods? You know, and that's one of the complaints I hear from a lot of people in residential areas is, you know, they're living in a rancher and a four-story big mansion goes in beside them and they're shadowed by it, so they leave because they can't even enjoy their backyard. So, you know, yeah, I'm having the other question I would ask is, what are the chances of a roundabout being put into that four-way stop to make the visibility more, to make the flow of the traffic go a little bit better crosswalks, would that be a better option than just having the four-way? I don't know, but that would be my question. You know, would it be better to put a roundabout in there to make it more fluid with the neighborhood? I don't know.
Generally, a roundabout is applied where there's an equal amount of traffic on all sections.
Right.
So in this one, the clear majority of traffic is 198th onto, you know, the east part of 53rd. The rest of it is more just local traffic. Yeah. So it.
But people are turning left.
Right.
So that would be my concern. So veer the car around. So when you're going across those trails and, you know, we need to have high visibility crosswalks, then that might be a better option for safety for kids walking across, or, you know, going to the Bryden Lagoon or going to the park, or just a thought, like.
Yeah, I mean, we can look into it. It's, you know, we'd have to look at what the property issues would be, and I guess, you know, I don't know, And generally, when we did the one at 53rd and 203, that one required quite a bit of property takes on the
Excruciating,
corners.
Yeah,
So I just don't know the space, whether it's entirely available in that area.
okay. Just a thought of
Yeah.
making it a little bit safer and friendlier. And in regards to the shadowing question, have we addressed those issues, or are those issues still unresolved?
Yes, through the mayor, I think taking a step back, at the start of the process with the application, the applicant went forward with a concept for the public information meeting back in the spring. And they were proposing a certain setback from the east property line. And, there was feedback from the residents. Staff took a closer look at that. And we also looked at best practice around the region in terms of townhouse setbacks and distance between townhouses and that sort of thing. And that's what led us to say, okay, we gotta increase that setback from the east property line, another 1.5 meters. And of course, there's also the fire lane in between the two blocks, and then the setback from the street, maintaining the sight lines. So there was a number of iterations where that setback was pushed back from the east property line and also brought further south. And then the blocks were also positioned in order to enable for that drive aisle to come in. And the shadowing analysis we ask for from all applicants is at the equinox, either the start of spring or the start of fall, between 9 a.m. and 3 p.m. And the intent of those is to take a look at what the massing might impact in terms of parks, public spaces, and adjacent residences. And the reason why you look at between the 9 a.m. and the 3 p.m. and why it's a convention used in many municipalities and through planning theory and practice over the decades is that that's typically when people come out for coffee, lunch. That's the time of day that vegetation is getting the highest amount of solar radiation because of the angle of the sun in the sky. Of course, the equinox, the sun is a little bit further down,
Right.
and the solstice, of course, it's higher. And once you get past the 3 p.m., the shadows start to get longer and longer. And that analysis that typically a lot of places are in shadow, the idea is to guide the analysis of massing relative to parks, public spaces, and adjacent yards. So that's the explanation I have there. And there's always going to be questions about, what does the shadow look like after that time period? And that's something that, in this case, would need to be extrapolated. And I would say, in the equinox, as we all know, the equinox just passed, and I think everyone noticed how much longer the shadows get relative to the solstice. And I think in this case, you can see on the shadow diagrams that the solstice does provide better solar access.
So the developer
Yeah.
has done everything they can to pull that back to make arrangements so that they're not getting shadowed, is that correct?
With the movement of the buildings to the west,
Yeah.
the idea there was to not only reduce the massing impact on the east
Yeah.
properties, but also the shadowing impact. But as the shadowing diagrams show, there is going to be shadowing impact on those other properties, as shown in the diagrams. That's just, in this development, other developments where you have apartment buildings beside another apartment building, or in areas where you have redevelopment occurring and you have existing land uses and new land uses. There's going to be those shadows cast, and this analysis helps with the design of the site. But again, the convention is between 9 a.m. and 3 p.m. because after that, the shadows typically get longer, and it's seen as something that's not exactly, the idea is you're trying to maximize access when people are out, again, for coffee, lunch, and when vegetation's getting the most solar
Okay.
energy. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you for clarifying that. Councillor Sturtevant.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Mrs. Johansson, for your comments around shadowing. I wanted to compliment the mayor in suggesting a roundabout. There's been some talk about that area being kind of dangerous for traffic, and it shouldn't be like that because there's like a park there. So if a roundabout doesn't work, please consider some kind of traffic calming. If people are buzzing through there at more than 30 clicks an hour, you know, it's a park. It's like a school zone. They got to be respectful. So, yeah, need be, some traffic calming would be a really great idea. My compliments. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Pahal, did you?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. To staff, and obviously I'm 100% supportive of any traffic calming, so you'd have my vote for that. But just for some background, is staff currently working on the master? Like, I know the answer, we're working on it, I'm just not quite sure of the timing, because this seems like an excellent thing to put into that for discussion and see what comes out.
In terms of the master transportation plan, yes, that is underway, and it'll probably be somewhere next fall for completion. So we can look at that, take that into consideration as far as a possibility of a roundabout, as well as traffic calming in the area.
Great. Okay. Any further discussion? I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Councillor Albrecht is opposed.
Sorry.
That's okay. We're not used to, it's the Zoom thing.
I'd like to put a motion forward.
Okay. Normally, I'm just gonna go through the, hold on, I got a little bit to name. Right, Kelly? Give me 1 second. Where's that little blurb? Okay, so we usually don't do motions on the fly. Usually they have to come in beforehand. Just going through council procedures. So if there is something that if a motion wants to be added, it needs to be a majority vote. Is that correct, Ms. Kenny?
Madam Mayor, we should ask if it's pertaining to this item. If it's
Okay.
not, that would be a new item.
Yeah.
Yep.
Is it pertaining to?
Yep.
Okay. What's your motion?
So the motion is basically to put a moratorium on tandem garages, on new developments, that's new applications, grandfather any old ones, until staff have completed the parking management study report, and council has a review and discussion and adoption of that report.
Okay, I would consider that new information, not to do with this, but can I get staff clarification on that? Is that, or does it really even matter?
Through the mayor to Councillor Albrecht, we don't believe that's new information because it's pertaining to a tandem parking that was just being considered as part of this bylaw.
Okay. Sorry, I didn't mean to giggle there. It's just everybody is kind of out of sorts being in person, so I totally understand.
You already gave third reading to the application.
To the application,
Yeah.
so.
So this would be considered something else, because we're doing a draft zoning bylaw review.
Right.
And in fact, I was going to say, as I did say earlier in discussion, staff are going to be coming to council with proposed new parking rates in addition to new zones to help implement the new OCP. So that could be something that could be added to that discussion if council so chooses.
Would you be,
So what I can do, this is what I'll suggest. I'll bring it in under new and unfinished business as a notice of motion for next
Beautiful.
council meeting.
yep. Perfect. Okay, so write that down so you remember.
I got it.
And I just moved all my pages, so I don't even know where I am now. Okay, we took the vote. You brought the motion up. We're on to H, new subdivision and development servicing bylaw 2021, number 3126.
Just as a point of order for my clarity, because my brain's a little shot, so is this the notice of motion you're doing right now? So it will be a motion?
No.
I'll bring it at the new and unfinished business at the end of the meeting.
Okay, so it will be, okay, got it.
It's okay. I'm not laughing at anyone. It's very bizarre being back in council chambers. That's all I'm gonna say. Very bizarre. I think there's a staff report in the agenda as a backup to this bylaw. So I'll just read the motion that the report from the Manager of Engineering Services dated October 4, 2021 regarding the proposed subdivision and development servicing bylaw 2021 number 3126 be received for information. So I need a mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Bahal, Councillor Storterboom. Any discussion on that, folks? Yeah.
And this is pertaining to the design criteria and bylaw servicing right now? Yeah, okay. I just wanted to say thank you to staff for putting together. I know that was probably, I feel like it's 3-year effort you put into that. And also making the changes both from council and from the development community and from residents was really great to see. I'm especially proud that we are looking at building sort of AAA infrastructure, so that's walking and cycling is embedded into the plan. It complements nicely, obviously, with the official community plan that hopefully we'll be able to get Metro Vancouver to approve so we can give it final reading. And also that, you looked at things that are technical but very important, like curve radiuses, to make sure that when people are turning on local roads, they're going slower because that's safer. Again, the street designs that are for walking and cycling. So it's just, there's a lot of work in that, and also lowering the arterial design speed to 50 was really important because, yes, granted, it's mostly built out. It ensures that we're designing streets for the speed that people go. So I think this all leads to a safer, more accessible community. And then the other work, I know that's not very, exciting for many people, but the work you went into for the on-site stormwater management and the discussion about permeability, that's really important, especially as we're talking about climate change, so that we have a modern subdivision bylaw that incorporates 100-year plus storm events, looks at making sure that we get groundwater back to recharge the aquifer, is really, really important. So again, I know these things sometimes go unnoticed and might glaze through, but this is serious stuff that has meaningful impact for 35, 50, 60 years in the community. So that's my thoughts.
Councillor Storterboom.
Well, thank you very much, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Mr. Gill. Your attention to detail is a credit to your profession. I really appreciate the solid effort that you put in for us here. I just want to be sure to thank you. I'm actually echoing Councillor Pahal's comments. I think that you're a great addition to the team, and I'm proud to be serving with you. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And a couple questions. Did we get much pushback on the infiltration that Councillor Pahal was alluding to, especially the on-site? There's some substantial costs that were going to be implemented, and I was just wondering if there's pushback.
Not really. There were, some developers were not familiar with this concept, so they were asking questions. But generally speaking, they're all, even as we speak, they're implementing that. And so far, so good. Everything is working. Yes.
Great, thank you for that. And also, I don't know how other better way to describe it, but are we going to be able to avoid our roads looking like a quilt? With patch here and cut there, where we have a new development come in and they're going to essentially redo the road surface, better so that we don't have, like I say, a patchwork quilt out there in the road with, because they always, the winter weather, the changes in temperatures, they always do that heave and expand and contract, and we get all the potholes at all those joints. So hopefully we're going to be ending that look in future development. So
Great, thank you.
Well, yes, actually, we have improved the pavement cut policy that we have, and right now it is embedded in the design criteria manual, and we have increased the rate to make it actually compatible with the cost that the city really has to endure as a result of digging the streets. So we are going in the right direction, I believe.
Good, okay. Anyone else? Well, Well, I'm going to echo the sentiments as well. You've done an absolutely fantastic job, Mr. Gill, and I know you have been working on it diligently for a couple of years now. And throw in Metro Vancouver and everybody else and their legislation and all the, everything. Kudos to you.
Thank you.
It's absolutely, and I'm like you, Nathan, I love reading that kind of stuff. I find it so amazing, what goes on underground and, yeah, the stormwater and all of that. So, I know I went to a conference a couple of years ago and they were talking about Taipei and how the whole city is done with the underwater ground systems and all of that. And I know as we were going along and you were talking about it, and you'd bring reports and show us stuff, and that's where Councillor Albrecht was bringing up the fact about the developers with the money, and I remember that conversation that we had about that, and it's just good to hear that they're understanding that that's the way to go nowadays, because climate change is so important, and you know, the safety of our community and longevity, right? We want more bang for our buck, so to speak, so that we know when we're putting things in, they're gonna last a really long time, right? So, thank you.
Thank you. I just want to take this opportunity to thank my colleagues. They helped me during the last 2.5 years that I was working on this, so it is also, their contribution was very important as well. I just want to thank them in here. And with regards to climate change, I just want to mention that we are one of the very few municipalities that already have included climate change in the design. Even larger municipalities in the lower mainland, still they are wondering how they have to deal with that. We already have included this based on the Metro Vancouver's actually studies. So in that sense, and some other stuff, we are using the state-of-the-art engineering design in this bylaw and the design criteria manual.
Well, thank you to you and your staff. You did a fantastic job, and it really shows, and maybe will be an example to other communities that can follow suit and be a champion for climate change. So thank you. Chairs, okay, any other comments or questions for staff? Okay, we'll call the vote. All those in favor, any opposed, and that carries. Thank you. All right, so on to bylaw 3126. Subdivision and Development Servicing Bylaw, third reading of a bylaw to establish the standard of works and services to be provided for the subdivision development of lands. Motion forward is that the city, or the bylaw cited as the Subdivision and Development Servicing Bylaw 2021, number 3126, be read a third time. I need a mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Bahal, Councillor Albrecht. Discussion. Seeing none, call the vote. All those in favor, any opposed, that carries. Bylaw 3182, Highway and Traffic Regulation Bylaw Amendment, first, second, and third reading of a bylaw to amend the Highway and Traffic Regulation Bylaw as required to comply with the proposed new subdivision and development servicing bylaw. That the bylaw cited as the Highway and Traffic Regulation Bylaw 2013, number 2871, Amendment Bylaw number 4, 2020, number 3182, be read a first, second, and third time. Councillor Wallace, Councillor Stortaboom, any discussion? Call the vote. All those in favor, any opposed, that carries. Bylaw 3187, Municipal Ticket Information System Amendment Bylaw. First, second, and third reading of a bylaw to amend fees in the municipal ticket information system as required to comply with the proposed new subdivision and development servicing bylaw. That the bylaw cited as the municipal ticket information system bylaw number 2846, amendment number 18, 2021, number 3187, be read a first, second, and third time. Mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Wallace, Councillor Stortaboom. Any discussion on this? Call the vote. All those in favor? Any opposed? That carries. Bylaw 3176, Fees and Charges Amendment, or Bylaw Amendment, first, second, and third reading of a bylaw to amend fees and charges for various services offered by the City of Langley as required to comply with the proposed new subdivision and development servicing bylaw. That the bylaw cited as the Fees and Charges Bylaw 2010, bylaw number 2837, Amendment 28, 2021, number 3176, be read a first, second, and third time. Need a mover and a seconder, please. Counselor Sturdivant, Counselor Bahal, any discussion? Call the vote. All those in favor, any opposed? And that carries. Okay, now, Mr. Albrecht, you are up for new and unfinished business, A, motions and notices. Notices of motion. Shoot.
Thanks, buddy. A notice of motion to place a moratorium on tandem garages on new development applications, grandfathering any current applications until staff completes the parking management study report. I think that's the right terminology. I think you get what I mean. Until the report for council's review, discussion, and adoption.
You seconding that?
Well,
No,
sure.
just a notice. Is it just a
Oh,
notice, or
right,
do we?
sorry. I got totally confused
Okay, we'll talk
there.
about it later. That's
Put your
okay.
hand down.
I was just looking for
Okay,
wherefores and
notice the motion,
therefores
it's
and-
gonna come forward as a motion.
Okay,
I think that's what,
Next
that's what
council
Kelly
meeting.
is the right procedure,
Oh, my-
correct?
Yes.
okay.
Do you have the motion? Okay.
Mr. Johansson.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Just wanted to provide a point of information that as the new OCP has gotten third reading and we're hoping to bring it back for adoption, we are also, staff are looking to present updates to our zoning bylaw in order to implement the OCP, and we'll be bringing those forward to council in segments. Zoning bylaw is a large, complex beast, to put it bluntly. And the key area that we would like to get a good discussion and direction from council on is the parking and loading. Everything flows from parking and loading, and that's going to be the first item we bring forward as part of the zoning bylaw. And of course, tandem parking will be part of that discussion. And I imagine it will come up, and that'll be something that staff will obviously take the direction of council. And ultimately, all that will have to be included in a bylaw, amending the zoning bylaw. So just wanted to put that out there for information.
Great, thank you. Sure.
Just quickly, and is what Councillor Albrecht suggested the thing that you're talking about, or is this a different thing? I just want to make sure we're not waiting like 2 years or something for what he's suggesting, and maybe you can talk later.
Through the mayor to Councillor Bahal, I am just clarifying for information that as a part of council approved the work plan to update the OCP and the zoning bylaw. So I just wanted to make it clear to council that as a part of updating the zoning bylaw, we will be bringing forward proposed new parking rates, regulations, loading, that sort of thing, as something that staff is recommending for the new zoning bylaw. And the tandem parking, some municipalities, they have limits in their zoning bylaw, for example, on tandem parking. Currently, we don't have any limits, as we all know. So I just want to make it clear that from a staff perspective, we're going to bring forward, from what I'm responsible to bring forward as the Director of Development Services, is a proposed new zoning bylaw. So just to clarify, in terms of, you mentioned a parking study, the study that we would be bringing forward is from our consultant about what our recommended parking rates and approaches are and what staff is adding to that, just to clarify. Yeah.
So in other words, we'll be working on this a lot in the next coming. Yeah, exactly. Okay, any other notices of motion while we're here? No correspondence, which is weird. No new business. We have a motion that the meeting adjourn. I need a mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Bahal and Councillor Sturdivant. I hope everyone has a happy Thanksgiving, which is coming up on Monday. It's nice to be back live in person. And don't forget to get vaccinated. Vaccinations are good. Wear your mask, wash your hands. All those in favor of adjourning the meeting? Any opposed? And that carries. Thanks for coming out tonight, folks.